Okay, so welcome back from the break. Still watching the morning rush. Today is Friday, wrapping it up. And Dr. Prince say medical PR for Medi is here. And of course, Harriet Adi is also here. Today we're talking about peptic ulcer disease. And we're trying to get the scientific name for it. Gastroesophageal
reflux.
Yes. Gastroesophageal reflux disease, something like that. Dr. Prince say, welcome. How you doing?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, Harris, this is our Medi Plus supplier.
Medi Plus.
Medi Plus supplier.
I like that name.
Yeah. Anyway, so the peptic ulcer.
Yeah.
First off, it's one branch of the ulcer family, or that's the main ulcer?
That's the main ulcer.
That's the main ulcer.
That's the main ulcer, but we have other forms of abdominal disorders. Okay. Yeah, we have something that we call gastritis. We have the gastric reflux, as I mentioned. Okay. You know, some people after they eat sometimes feel some burning sensations from their throat through we call something epigastric. When you touch this part of your abdomen, you feel that there's a little bit of hole there. That is where we call the epigastric region. Sometimes when there is sore there, or when there is bruises over there, when you eat anything that contains pepper or anything, you start experiencing those burning sensations over there. People come to the hospital and they will tell you that, oh, Dr. Makuma Yemiya, because of the pains that they feel, because of the location of the pain. Okay. People expect ulcer to be felt within the abdomen, but sometimes you can feel it within this. Yeah. Yes. Majority of the times, though, you can feel it within the epigastric region. That can also radiate to the left side, and you may feel that is a heart-related condition. Yeah. So.
Okay. I just wanted to let viewers know that they can send us a message. And today, please send the messages early so that Don doesn't leave before I'm getting to see them. So 0553 000035, 0553 000035. If you have any questions about peptic ulcer, stomach ulcer, whichever thing, just send that in on WhatsApp 0553 000035.
But is it always the case when you have this burning sensation? Yeah. Is it always that you have peptic ulcer?
No, it's not always the case. It's not always. Sometimes, maybe you've eaten too much pepper, that one too can cause a burning sensation. But majority of the time, it could be some bruises within the gastrointestinal area. You know, there is this mucous lining that is supposed to surround the intestine to the abdomen, the stomach to the small intestines and all that. But sometimes some activities that we do causes those mucous lining to break. And when it breaks, it means that the gastric acid, there is an acid within the abdomen that digests the food. The gastric acid can corrode the lining of the intestine. And mostly, that is when you start experiencing those burning sensations. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I, for one, when I take gari or beans, I get that a lot. Yeah. I love pepper, but when I take pepper, I don't have that sensation. But there's this particular pepper that when I take, I get that. This cayenne pepper, the dry, powdered one. Yeah. When I take that, I get that a lot. Does it mean that I have anything of that sort?
This epigastric area mostly has a lower protective covering. Oh, okay. So when you eat some of these diets, sometimes it's reflux. Like that is why it's called reflux disease. So when it comes up a bit, it can cause those bruises within that area. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have ulcer, but when you have ulcer too, those diets that you mentioned, the beans, the gari, is not so good for you because it can make the pains very excruciating, right? So you have to stay away from those diets when you have peptic ulcer. Those in itself wouldn't cause the peptic ulcer. The spicy foods, the pepper and all that, they wouldn't necessarily cause the gastric ulcer, but when you have the gastric ulcer, it can cause the symptoms to be very severe. Yeah.
So how then do you get gastric ulcer?
So as we mentioned, there's a sore within the gastrointestinal tract, and there are two main things that can cause it. One is the bacteria that is called the Helicobacter pylori, or the H. pylori that most people call it. Yeah, and the H. pylori mostly will cause the acid within. Is the bacteria does well in acidic areas. So once they are located in the abdomen, it will cause the acid within the abdomen to be producing more. And in that sense, it means that the stomach will lose that protective covering that it mostly gets. And the acid will corrode the intestinal wall or the abdominal wall. And also the abuse of painkillers. We call them
yes, I was told.
Yes, most painkillers, we call it non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And their mechanism of action is such that it blocks something that we call prostaglandins within the...
Wow.
The prostaglandin is what makes you feel pain. When you have a pain, it's the prostaglandin that makes you feel that there is pain. So when you take the painkillers, it stops the production of the prostaglandin. Okay. So you wouldn't feel the pain. Yeah, so that's the mechanism of action of those painkillers, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And these same the stomach to produce this mucous lining that protects the stomach. So once the prostaglandin is being stopped from being produced or is being stopped from production, then it means that your stomach too will lose the protective lining, which is the mucous lining. It will lose that, and in effect, it can cause the peptic ulcer. So there are some forms of painkillers that are good. We call them COX-2 inhibitors. The mechanism of action is a bit different from most of the painkillers that we know out there. You mentioned diclofenac, we have aspirin, we have brufens and other forms of painkillers. The abuse of all those painkillers can cause one to have peptic ulcer disease. Yeah.
So, I'm so glad you've mentioned that bacteria and then painkillers.
Yes.
What about hunger? Like trying to, fight hunger, not eat your food and all that.
Yeah,
because they always tell you if you don't eat, you get ulcer.
Yeah.
Is that true?
It's not entirely true.
Okay.
It's not entirely true. If you have good protective covering for your abdomen, starving yourself wouldn't necessarily let you get ulcer. But if you don't have it and you keep starving yourself, then it means that your stomach will be producing the acid. It wouldn't get any food to digest.
Okay.
Then it will tend to digest the intestinal walls, right? So it's the acid that is being produced that is helping the food that you've eaten, the bones in the food and all to digest. You know, acid has this corrosive activity. So if there is no food in your abdomen to digest it, then it means that it will start corroding the abdominal wall. So fasting in itself doesn't necessarily cause the peptic ulcer, but if there is this H. pylori there, the bacteria is already there, and mind you, the bacteria, if we take two people, one person has it.
Okay.
So how do you get that bacteria?
It's mostly through close contact. If someone has it through kissing.
Wait, also you get, wait, really?
Yes, H. pylori can be, you can get it through kissing. You can get it through food. So if someone has it, I think last week we talked about typhoid.
Talk about typhoid.
Yeah. The mechanism of action of getting the bacteria is almost the same as that of typhoid. Through foods, through water, through close contact, kissing and all that. So you can't get it.
Now, apart from the stomach that will hurt or whatever, what are the other symptoms and how can it be treated? We've got some messages and then
So the major symptoms that you experience is the epigastric pain. That is mostly where people start experiencing the pain because as I mentioned earlier, the protective lining there is already weak. So when there is any sore developing there, you start feeling those pains there. But you need to know that that pain mostly will radiate to the back. So if you're having any pain within the epigastric area, radiating to the back, that same part at the back, you feel the pain there, then it should prompt you that you may be having peptic ulcer disease. Also, you can feel bloated. So after eating any food, you feel like the food is not well digested. You feel so bloated, you feel like vomiting, nausea. Yeah. So the food doesn't digest well and all that. But the major thing that people see that is a bit alarming is dark stool. When you start experiencing dark stool, it means that you're having something that we call GI bleeding. You are bleeding internally. Yes, so the ulcer can cause sores within the abdomen and the source could be bleeding. And when you are bleeding, because it mixes with the acid, it will cause your stool to be dark. So these are some of the symptoms that you see. But other people too may experience feverishness, chills and all that, those malaria-like symptoms because of the infection of the H. pylori. If the H. pyloris are there, because it's an infection, you can start experiencing fever, you start experiencing bitterness in the mouth, feverishness and all that, yeah. So those are some of the signs that you see. But the major one is the epigastric pain and the abdominal pains that most people experience.
Okay, so let me just read some of the questions, the messages we have. We answered them quickly. We've got a short time. This one says that, hi, can ulcer cause shocks in the arm and make the bones weak? So you feel electric shock in your arms, legs, and mouth, and makes you tired, feeling nauseated every morning.
Yeah, for the nausea, yes, but the electric shock, it may mean that there may be a nervous issue. So it's not really related to the ulcer, but it could be part of the complications. Yeah.
Good morning, please. How different is peptic ulcer from H. pylori? And if a child has H. pylori, is it life-threatening? That's from Ethel. Okay,
so as I mentioned, 1 in 2 people have the H. pylori. So H. pylori is in it itself wouldn't necessarily be very harmful. So if a child has it and the child is being managed well, or the dieting and everything is okay, then it means that the child may not develop the ulcer. But there is the likelihood that once you have it, you could develop the peptic ulcer. So it's not so serious. But the one thing is, the reason why it's spreading is that there has been some resistance to the H. pylori. Most of the antibiotics that we use, the H. pylori has grown resistance to it because of our lifestyles and all that, yeah.
Okay. So this one, I'm sure you answered that when you were making your submission. Good morning, Doc. Ask whether ulcer can cause back pains and sometimes dizziness. Yeah, it does. Good morning. Jennifer, please, can peptic ulcer cause frequent hiccups?
Yeah, it's possible because of the epigastric. You know, the epigastric area, that is where the diaphragm is. That is what separates the abdomen from the lungs. So when you have any discomfort there, it means that it can also affect the diaphragm. And the diaphragm is what mostly causes the hiccups that people experience. And the bloatiness, you know, when you feel bloated, it means that there is this accumulation of gas within you. So your body you may be belching, like you try to belch it out and all that. So that can definitely cause the hiccups.
Well, the last one that we talked about, Medi, I was asked to do endoscopy test, and the results say I had a wound from my throat to my whole stomach. I've been giving medications, but it's still worrying me. I guess with this one, I need to go to Medi.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about your locations once again and how people can get there.
And the last question, as you said, endoscopy is what we use to diagnose peptic ulcer. And when you have it, you can come to Medi. We can run all these tests. The H. pylori, as I said, a lot of people has grown resistance to it, but gladly we have some medications, some herbal medications that are not resistant to the H. pylori. Mostly these orthodox medications, because of the abuse of it, people get resistance to it. So the herbal medication has different pathways that is able to treat the H. pylori. So if you've been diagnosed with peptic ulcer, H. pylori infection, come to Medi. We are at Adenta Barrier. That's where our head office is. It's a diagnostic center. It's a dental clinic, herbal clinic, prostate center. You can come there to get checked and treated for peptic ulcer. Also, when you're around Ashaman, you can go to a J. Kojo behind the School for the Deaf, Accra Central AESL building, opposite the Ministry of Road and Highway. Kumasi at Ahinema Kokobin. Yes, you can come there. Our numbers are on the screen. You can pick it up and call us for further discussions.
Definitely. Doc, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you on here. Have a great weekend and see you next week. So this will wrap up the show for today. Many thanks for joining us here. My name is Desmond Okrekudan. You can call me Decipating the Star Boy.
And my name is Harriet Adi.
Yep. So at 9:45, I'll be on with Good Morning Ghana. And then today, Intimate Review, 3 p.m.
Yeah,
and of course,
there's
we're
a lot
talking about
for,
Metro Lab in the air. So do join us. Up next is Good Morning Ghana with Dr. Randy Abe. Do have yourselves a great day. Remember to dream big, shine bright, and sparkle more. Bye-bye.